Hey, I'm Joe. Welcome to Better Coffee. Let's make some coffee together. We're going to start with an interesting coffee from Phil and Sebastian, and it's from Kenya. They say that they're tasting molasses, blackberry, and peach, and this is roasted in September, so it's not super fresh, but we're going to talk about what to do with a brewing method instead of focusing so much on the bean today. We have a couple different options for brewing methods. We can do immersion, like a French press, percolation, pour over, or one of two hybrids. Today we're gonna do a traditional Chemex pour over, which is probably one of the oldest ways to make specialty coffee by hand. So first of all, we need to know how much of everything we're gonna use. My tried and true recipe is 42 grams of coffee to 700 grams of water, and we're gonna aim for about 4.5 minutes of total brewing time, and then kind of pull what's left and see what we get. Start by weighing our beans. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it helps to be consistent. And take a look at our lovely beans. So there's a very distinct kind of tomatoey smell sometimes with lighter roast Kenyan coffees, and this definitely has that smell in it, but we're gonna see what else is in there because that's only one of the things. And when we say tomato, it's not like eating a tomato, but it smells kind of like tomato soup. So let's make some tomato bean soup. Our kettle, so it's boiling in the background. And we're gonna need a filter. These filters from Chemex come in a variety of sizes and folded or not. These are already cut corner and pre-folded for us, which makes it easy. So you want to open up the inside, kind of like make a little pocket. You notice one of the sides has like 3 pieces of paper thick, and there's a thin side. So we're gonna put the thick side forward, the little spout here. Make sure to push it in there. Then we're going to use a little bit of our hot water that we brewed to rinse the filter, pre-wet it so that it doesn't absorb water unevenly, and warm up our brewer just a little bit. So all of our water has drained down out of the filter. I'm going to discard. We are ready to add coffee to this. We need to grind these beans. Playing with our grind will make somewhat of a difference in how it goes, but today we're just going to talk about the basics. So we're going to use like a medium-ish grind. So what we get is a lovely medium grind. Hopefully not too much powder. That's kind of the mark of a good grinder, that it doesn't make too much powder while you grind it. We have a scale with a timer integrated, and that's going to be our very best friend. So I'm going to turn it so that I can see well. I'm going to talk through what's going on here. We're going to turn it on, make sure that we're tared and at 0, and on this side we have our timer, and start our pours. Generally speaking, I want like between a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio for my bloom, which is the initial pour. So we start with that 42 grams. So I'm going to aim for around 100. What we're trying to do right now is just get all the coffee wet and get any CO2 that's going to come out kind of aggressively to escape, so that we can let water move through the coffee a lot more evenly. Sometimes in this stage people like to give a little swirl. There's a lot of debate about precise technique here, and some of it does matter, but if you follow the basics, you'll be making better coffee, and that's what we're all about. And we want to let this go for about the first minute. You can let it go longer, but I find that that's all that's kind of needed to get that initial CO2 off. And we're using a much like a relatively light roast for this coffee, so we're not going to see a crazy amount of bloom action as compared to like a darker roast. So our scale gives us that nice little beep. So we've got 1 minute down, so we're going to start our pours just gently in the center, and we're aiming for a total of 700 in like 3 or 4 pours. So the first one, I'm going to take us up to around 400 grams on the scale. Pouring nice and slow in circles. Try not to agitate it too much, but mix everything around kind of that was like settled on the walls from the bloom. And we're looking for this pour to take like between 30 and 45 seconds. There we go. So we've got our first pour down. We're at 400 grams in total. And now we have to wait to get some room in the cone for water to filter down so we can add some more. So we only have another 150 mLs to go. And we'll pour that right around like 3 and a bit minutes. There's a lot going on here, but basically we're just trying to evenly add water to the coffee so that there's lots of water surrounding the coffee in here so that it's brewing kind of consistently, and make sure that we're not disturbing the whole bed of coffee in there as we're doing that too much. Let's see if we can get it up to that 700 mark. Might be struggling. So if you're finding that there's not enough room, that the water's not going down fast enough, it's probably because the grind is a little bit too fine, or there's too much powder blocking the paper filter. So your grinder might not be doing everything that we want it to be doing. But here we are with our 700 grams of water, and we're approaching 4 minutes. I'm gonna let this go probably until closer to the 5-minute mark. Something that you can do if you're brave and have a little bit of heat tolerance is just gently lift and kind of help an airlock if it formed there, or just in general get the water moving through there a little bit faster. The steam coming out from there is quite warm, so if you're not used to working with hot things all day, then you might want to avoid that step. 4.5 minutes. With this volume of brew, I'm generally looking for this little nub on the front to be full. We don't necessarily want to let all that water go through all the coffee, or we might get a lot of astringency and bitterness and drying sensations from the coffee. So we are going to use a pull method. We're at 5 minutes and we're approaching that nub. So give it a second. And over we go. So if you're doing this next to a sink, it's pretty effective. The thing that I would change for next time would be to make that grind just a little bit bigger so that the water could run through more easily. But that said, we stopped the brew at this ratio, so it should taste pretty good. Stop our timer, clear our scale. I just want to give our brewed coffee a bit of a swirl and a stir. Make sure that all the things in there are evenly mixed and even a little bit aerated. Then it's time to pour. And we just want to be careful not to burn our tongue if we're going to drink it right away. So one of the things that can help with that is giving it a little bit of a drop as we're pouring, but we can also just let it sit and cool. This takes practice and time, so don't be upset if your first one kind of goes on the floor. I would do this over a sink at home. And we have a delicious cup of coffee brewed through a Chemex. It smells fantastic, and that like tomatoiness is really muted down, and it tastes a lot more like stone fruit smells, like blackberry and the peach that they were talking about on the bag. And because of that Chemex bonded paper filter, we're gonna have almost no grit in our mouthfeel, so it should be nice and smooth and clean tasting. Absolutely wonderful.